It was a chilly evening in Ohio when Sarah Thompson, a 34-year-old mother of two, sat at her kitchen table with her laptop open and her bills scattered across the counter. Like many Americans, Sarah had been hit hard by the rising cost of living. Her grocery bill had nearly doubled in the past year. A single carton of eggs that once cost $1.99 was now over $4. Gas prices in her town had bounced between $3.50 and $5 a gallon, making every trip to work sting a little more. Rent had crept higher too, and medical bills from her son's recent trip to the ER still sat unpaid on the counter. To make matters worse, the company she worked for had just announced layoffs. She wasn't laid off yet, but she knew the storm was coming. Sarah sighed as she looked at her bank account balance. "I need something extra. Something that doesn't depend on whether or not my boss decides to cut me loose," she muttered to herself. That night, after putting her kids to bed, she made a cup of coffee and opened YouTube. Her fingers hovered on the keyboard before she finally typed the words she had been too embarrassed to admit out loud: side hustles that work in a recession. What she found would change her life. The first idea Sarah stumbled across was digital printables. At first, she was skeptical. People actually pay for printable planners and calendars? Why not just use Google Calendar? But the deeper she looked, the clearer it became. Americans loved tangible organization tools, things they could print and hang on the fridge, worksheets for their kids, or creative planners that looked far more fun than a boring app. In fact, Etsy was full of sellers making steady income with meal planners for busy families, chore charts for kids, wedding invitations and bridal shower games, coloring pages for both children and stressed-out adults. Sarah thought about her own life. She had already spent hours designing chore charts for her kids in Microsoft Word. What if she could polish those up, make them look professional, and sell them? So she downloaded Canva, a free design tool, and created a simple weekly meal planner. Nothing fancy, just a clean layout with boxes for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. She uploaded it to Etsy for $3.99. Days went by. Then one morning, while making her kids' lunches, her phone buzzed with a notification. She had made her first sale. Just $3.99, but it felt like $1,000,000. That night, Sarah went deeper. She created a budgeting template, a fitness tracker, and a daily gratitude journal. Within 2 months, she had a small Etsy shop with 10 products, and to her surprise, she was earning about $200 a month. It wasn't life-changing money, but it was proof. She could create something once, and it would sell over and over again, even while she slept. And in a recession, customers appreciated affordable products. A $4 printable planner was a small, guilt-free purchase that helped people feel more in control of their busy lives. For Sarah, this wasn't just a hustle, it was a mindset shift. Printables had opened the door, but Sarah wanted more. One Saturday, Sarah decided to clean out her garage. Old clothes, kids' toys, a dusty blender she hadn't touched in years. Normally, she would have donated most of it, but she remembered a video she had watched about reselling online. Instead of giving everything away, she pulled out her phone, snapped some pictures, and listed a few items on Facebook Marketplace and eBay. By Sunday evening, her old blender had sold for $40, and a pair of barely worn sneakers fetched $25. Her eyes widened. Wait a second, this stuff was just sitting here. That small success sparked an idea. What if she could go find things to resell? The following weekend, Sarah visited a local Goodwill thrift store. At first, it was overwhelming. Racks of clothes, shelves of random electronics, piles of kitchen gadgets. But after scrolling through eBay's sold listings on her phone, she started to see patterns. Brand-name jeans for $6 that sold online for $30. A vintage board game priced at $2 that could fetch $25. Children's books bundled together that parents online were paying $15 for. She bought a small haul, $30 worth of items. A week later, she had turned that into $150 in sales. This was more than pocket change. Reselling became her weekend treasure hunt. She brought her kids along, teaching them the thrill of spotting value where others saw junk. It became almost like a game. Who could find the best flip? And the best part? In tough economic times, buyers were flooding secondhand markets. Shoppers who once bought new were now looking for deals, and Sarah was happy to provide them. Platforms like Poshmark, eBay, and Mercari were thriving because Americans were hunting for bargains. By the end of the year, she was making $600 to $800 a month just from reselling. That was enough to cover her car payment and a good chunk of groceries. Sarah's biggest breakthrough came unexpectedly. One evening, her cousin Emily from Chicago called asking if she could stay for a few nights while visiting Ohio for a work trip. Sarah agreed, and after Emily left, she joked, "You know, you could rent this guest room out. It's nicer than half the Airbnbs I've stayed in." Sarah laughed it off at first, but the idea stuck. Her guest room was cozy, with a private bathroom and a separate entrance from the garage. She spent a weekend sprucing it up, new bedding, a few wall decorations, a small coffee station in the corner. Then she listed it on Airbnb for $65 a night. Within a week, she had her first booking, a traveling nurse staying for 5 nights. That one reservation brought in over $300. Sarah couldn't believe it. Over the next few months, the guest room stayed consistently booked. College parents visiting their kids, business travelers avoiding pricey hotels, and even couples looking for budget-friendly weekend getaways. Airbnb income quickly became her strongest hustle. Some months, she earned over $1,200 just from that one room. By the end of 2 years, Sarah had built a recession-proof safety net. Printables gave her passive income, money that rolled in whether she worked or not. Reselling provided steady, flexible cash flow from weekend hunts. Airbnb became her most reliable monthly income stream, paying bills that once kept her up at night. Together, these hustles gave her something her job never did. Of course, it wasn't always easy. Some months her Etsy shop was quiet. Sometimes eBay sales slowed, and once a difficult Airbnb guest left her scrambling. But because she had 3 streams of income, one always seemed to balance out the others. That was the real secret, not putting all her eggs in one basket. Looking back, Sarah realized a few truths. Small steps matter. Her first $3.99 Etsy sale felt tiny, but it was the seed of something bigger. Consistency beats luck. The more she listed items on eBay, the more she sold. The more product she uploaded to Etsy, the more her shop grew. Hospitality is powerful. Airbnb wasn't just about renting a room. It was about creating an experience that made people feel at home. Most importantly, she learned that in uncertain times, resourcefulness is recession-proof. Thanks for joining us on this journey into recession-proof hustles. Remember, small steps can build big security in uncertain times. If this inspired you, hit like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. And stay tuned. We'll be back with more ways to earn smarter, not harder.